parties, luncheons, book readings. You know, we should think about our community first. We have a tendency to want to run out to the hotels and those types of things. But where we can use our community venues, we should do so. And the Regency West has been a community partner of the Urban Issues Forum for the past 5 years, and we appreciate everything that they have done for us and continue to do. Secondly, I'd like to thank my family for coming out. My middle daughter is here, Gabrielle. The rest of them are en route. My mom's a little ill tonight, so she says she hasn't come out, but my family are big supporters of my work. And then I'd like to...
Dr. Anthony Samad, thank you for being with REELURBANNEWS.com.
No problem. I appreciate the opportunity to come back.
It's good to be back. We're excited about your brand new book, Real Eyes, taking a look at race, reality, and politics in the 21st century, popular culture. What's the genesis of this book?
The genesis of the book is that we live in what we commonly call a new normal. In a 21st century paradigm that most people don't recognize. Most of America still looks at the world through a 20th century prism. And the book is an examination of American institutions, race, religion, education, and American societal practices. Okay, we look at racism, narcissism, national identity. You know, we look at things like sport, sex, popular culture crisis, and we see that things have changed in our society.
Looking at here in California, the propositions with same-sex marriage. The people who were for same-sex marriage tied themselves to the civil rights movement, saying that gay marriage and same-sex couples is a civil rights issue. What's your take on that? You talk about that in the book.
I do talk about it in the book, and it was around the campaign, Gay is the New Black, and the progressive coalition that is made up of ethnic minorities, women, LGBT movement, who have been able to coalesce around several issues. When this issue came up, it was Proposition 8, which is now being considered before the Supreme Court in this session. They wanted to essentially try to tie the marriage equality movement on the coattail of the civil rights movement. Well, they made some very bad assumptions and some very strategic mistakes. The assumption that they made was that African Americans would automatically support the same-sex marriage movement because they had been part and parcel to inequality and injustice for so long. They certainly should understand that. What they missed was that African Americans are the most church-going segment of the American population, and the churches that African Americans attend don't necessarily support or condone same-sex relationships. Now, that does not make African Americans homophobic, because African Americans, more than anybody, have a greater sensitivity to homosexuality, given that most African Americans have someone in their family that is gay. Okay, and they didn't stop loving them because they were gay, including myself. You know, my youngest brother is my favorite sibling. He and I are closer than any of my other brothers and sisters. You know, but in terms of what my position is, you oftentimes are going to follow the norm that is more closely tied to the morals and values of your belief system or your church. And so essentially what the LGBT community didn't acknowledge is that they were essentially asking black people to vote against what they believed in the church. They choose between our movement and the church. Okay? And black people chose the church.
The church. Also looking at your book, chapter 1, we talked about layman's terms, the dumbing down of America. We saw it on display in 2008 politically with the likes of Sarah Palin. That was, you couldn't get any that's the best example I can come up with.
Right.
Your chapter looks at the anti-intellectualism meets narcissism. Give us just a spin on that.
Well, America has become a narcissistic society. We oftentimes see ourselves as more important or as more significant than we really are. We have typical narcissistic behaviors when we talk to other countries and when we engage in other countries. And we saw the dumbing down of America take place, and I call it anti-intellectualism, which is a dislike for intellectuals. Now, when we really talk about how anti-intellectualism impacts our society, we saw in the 2012 election that they prepared messages, communication messages to what they call the low information voter. Well, that's another way of saying dumb.
Dumb.
And, so yet, we still want to prop ourselves up as a world leader when our schools are 37th in the world, in math and test scores, when our public education systems are in decline. I talk about how did we get to this point, and how is it that we have such a resistance to being intellectuals, yet we have an appreciation for intelligence. We like intelligence, we just don't like intellectuals.
Looking at politics, you can't help but look at also religion and how religion has, the way we practice religion has changed. Definitely in the past decade. The last part of the 20th century, we saw the birth, if you will, of the mega church. I believe you allude to it as the microwavable religion. What's your take on religion as we move forward in this 21st century?
Yeah. Well, I think that what we have seen is that the church capitulate to try to be popular. Okay? Church has always been the moral guide of society. The church has always been the high ground where everybody attains to be. Yet we've seen now the church conform to popular norms. There was a time that we prepared ourselves to go to church. We dressed up.
Sure.
Now we dress down going to church. Come as you are.
Literally.
Right. There was a time where we understood that we were going to have to do 2 to 3 hours in church. That was the commitment. And now church services are 90 minutes. That's what I call microwave religion. Get them in and get them out.
Looking at popular culture, we examine, we were talking off camera about the word nigger and how it's used freely among other races. And I know you were saying that's why we can't get rid of the word, because we find Hispanics referring to each other as nigger. We find Asians referring to each other in a loving tone. Hey, what's up?
People.
White people. Yeah, right. Is it cool to be black?
Well, I have a chapter in the book called Popular Blackness and the Return of Negrophobia.
I couldn't say that word.
Right. And so the reality is that everybody wants to be black, but like Paul Mooney says, they really don't want to be black.
Sure.
Because America has been socialized to fear blacks, particularly black males.
Right.
In the 1980s and 1990s, when hip-hop became the dominant genre, hip-hop has probably been the most unifying genre that we have seen, even greater than rock and pop. Pop was crossover music, black music that crossed over.
Right.
Or white music that black people listened to. It was popular music. Well, now the dominant genre, rap, is pop music.
Crossed over.
And it's crossed over, and everybody wants to be a part of it.
We were talking about the 21st century, and your book is a playbook almost, if you will. How are we going to move forward? What do you see us looking like as a nation and as a people, as African-American people in the 21st century?
We have to stop fighting cultural shifts. What the church wants to call it is moral drift. And it has led to the decline of some societies. So we have to determine how far we're going to let it go. There are some changes that we're not going to be able to stop. There's some changes that we can stop. We can stop anti-intellectualism. Okay? How do we stop hypersexualism? We go back to censoring society. You know, otherwise hypersexuality is going to continue to perpetuate itself. We're not going to be able to stop the shift in cultural identity. America is going to get browner.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay.
We're going to be, by 2042, we're going to be a majority minority nation. How do we embrace that? How do we include everybody in the power structure so that the resources are shared in an equitable way? You know, those are the things that we really have to pay attention to. Now, and the real thing, how do we change is America ever going to get over black people? You know, and the reason why they can't is because they won't do right by us. What do I say? What I mean by that? What I mean by that is that, you know, they want to ignore the reparations problem, largely because they figure they will never, ever, ever be able to pay us what they owe us. Okay.